The return of Princess Nymeria. Queen Vera of the Coltrane Empire stared out through the massive viewing port of her royal chambers. Her forearms crossed in what her subjects recognized as a posture of supreme annoyance. The 3 moons of Koltoria Prime gleamed against the night sky, but their beauty failed to soothe her stormy mood. Her scales flickered between deep purple and electric blue, a clear sign of her emotional turmoil. "Your Magnificence," her chief advisor Grex called from the entrance, his voice trembling slightly. "The Galactic Council representatives have arrived. They request an immediate audience." "Oh, how absolutely wonderful," Vera hissed, not bothering to turn around. "Just what I needed to complete this perfect day. First, the atmospheric stabilizers malfunction. Then the rebellion on Nexus 4 gains momentum. And now I have to entertain those pompous gas bags from the Council. And tell me, Grex, did you perhaps arrange all this misfortune as a special birthday surprise?" Grex's eye stalks retracted slightly in embarrassment. "It is not your birthday for another 3 lunar cycles, Your Magnificence." "That was sarcasm, you literal-minded fool," Vera snapped, finally turning to face him. Her tail swished dangerously close to a priceless vase from the ancient Zakarian civilization. "Fine, send them in. But I warn you, if any of them mentions the Human Alliance Treaty again, I might just have them served for dinner. Your Magnificence knows that consuming sentient beings has been outlawed for." "Another joke, Grex. By the cosmic void, must I explain every figure of speech?" "My apologies, Your Magnificence," Grex bowed deeply, his forehead nearly touching the polished obsidian floor. As her advisor scurried away, Vera settled onto her throne, an imposing structure carved from a single piece of meteoric iron that had fallen to Koltoria Prime centuries ago. The throne room with its soaring ceilings and walls adorned with the battle flags of conquered worlds was designed to intimidate. Today, however, its grandeur felt hollow. 10 years had passed since Princess Nymeria, her only daughter and heir, had perished in the final battle against the humans. 10 years since Vera had received the shattered remains of her daughter's personal battlecruiser, the dreadful Symmetry. The war with the humans had ended shortly afterward, not in glorious Coltrane victory as had been prophesied, but in a stalemate that had eventually led to the current uneasy peace. The massive double doors slid open, and the Galactic Council delegation entered. 5 different species were represented, walking in formation. Vera stifled a groan when she spotted Ambassador Plex of the Golarians. The gelatinous being had a particular talent for long-winded speeches that tested even her royal patience. "Queen Vera of the illustrious Coltrane Empire," announced the lead ambassador, a tall, willowy Visian with silver skin that shimmered under the light of the quantum chandeliers. "We bring greetings and urgent matters for your consideration." "Skip the formalities, Ambassador Thrick," Vera said, waving one of her 4 hands dismissively. "What crisis brings you to my throne room unannounced?" The silver-skinned diplomat exchanged nervous glances with his colleagues. "Your Magnificence, we have received disturbing reports from the border outpost near the Crimson Nebula. An unregistered ship breached your security perimeter 3 standard hours ago." Vera leaned forward, her crest rising in alarm. "And this concerns the Council because..." "Because," Ambassador Plex interjected, his gelatinous form quivering with what might have been excitement. "The ship appears to be of human design, but emitting Kulleran identification signals. Most curiously, the signals match those of a vessel long thought destroyed, the royal cruiser Dreadful Symmetry." The throne room fell silent. Even the guards stationed along the walls seemed to hold their breath. "That's impossible," Vera finally said, her voice dangerously soft. "The Dreadful Symmetry was destroyed in the Battle of Orion's Belt. My daughter died on that ship." "Nevertheless," the Visian ambassador continued, "the vessel requested landing clearance at the royal spaceport using Princess Nymeria's personal access codes that have not been used in a decade." Vera stood suddenly, causing the entire delegation to take a collective step backward. "Where is the ship now?" "It was granted emergency landing permission and touched down approximately 20 minutes ago." Security forces have surrounded it, but no one has yet emerged. Without another word, Queen Vera strode past the delegation, her royal guards falling into step behind her. As she marched through the palace corridors, servants and officials scattered before her like prey animals sensing a predator. "Prepare my personal transport," she ordered one startled aide, "and alert the royal medical team. I want genetic verification protocols ready." Within minutes, her sleek royal shuttle was speeding toward the spaceport on the outskirts of the capital city. Vera stared straight ahead, refusing to acknowledge the hope blossoming painfully in her chest. Hope was dangerous. Hope made you vulnerable. From the shuttle's windows, she could see the massive security presence surrounding one landing pad where a battle-scarred ship rested. It was indeed of human design, a retrofitted military vessel with the unmistakable angular lines of their architecture. But emblazoned on its hull were Kulleran royal symbols, including the personal crest of Princess Nymeria. "Your Magnificence," the shuttle pilot called back. "Security Command requests instructions regarding the vessel's occupants." "Have they made contact?" "Yes, Your Magnificence. They claim there are only 2 individuals aboard, one Kulturian and one human." Vera's heart hammered against her thoracic plating. "Land immediately." As the royal shuttle settled onto the adjacent landing pad, Vera composed herself. Queens did not rush. Queens did not show emotion. These were the lessons her own mother had drilled into her from hatchlinghood. She descended from the shuttle with practiced grace, flanked by her personal guard. The spaceport's commanding officer hurried to meet her, dropping to one knee in obeisance. "Rise, Commander DRA. Report." The commander, a battle-hardened veteran who had served in the Human-Kulturan War, looked uncharacteristically shaken. "Your Magnificence, the ship's airlock cycle has just completed. The occupants are preparing to disembark." As if on cue, the strange vessel's entry ramp began to lower with a mechanical whine. Steam hissed from hydraulic pistons, momentarily obscuring the opening. The assembled security forces raised their weapons, energy dampeners humming as they powered up. And then, through the dissipating steam, a figure appeared at the top of the ramp, tall and regal, with scales that caught the sunlight and refracted it in patterns of emerald and gold, unmistakably Kulleran royalty. The figure's head crest was fully extended, a sign of confidence or perhaps defiance, as she descended the ramp. Vera felt her legs threaten to give way beneath her. "Nymeria," she whispered, too softly for anyone to hear. But it was impossible. The being before her looked like Nymeria, moved like Nymeria, but she was changed. Cybernetic enhancements were visible along one side of her face, and her left arm appeared to be entirely mechanical, not Kulturan technology, but something else. Human, perhaps. And then, behind her daughter, it was her daughter, Vera was certain now, came another figure, a human male, tall by their standards, with dark skin and closely cropped hair peppered with gray. He wore what appeared to be a modified version of a human military uniform, but with Kulturan insignia. The security forces tensed visibly at the human's appearance. Relations between their species might have improved on paper, but old hatreds died hard. Princess Nymeria stopped several meters from where her mother stood. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then, with deliberate slowness, Nymeria pressed her upper right hand to her heart in the traditional Kulturan greeting from child to parent. "Hello, mother," she said, her voice exactly as Vera remembered it, though perhaps harder around the edges. "I apologize for the dramatic entrance, but I thought a warning might complicate matters unnecessarily." "Nymeria," Vera breathed, unable to maintain her royal composure any longer. She stepped forward but stopped when her daughter raised a hand. "Before we have our reunion, I need assurances of safety, not for myself, but for my companion." She gestured to the human behind her. "This is Captain Marcus Blackage of the former Human Alliance vessel Redemption, currently my husband." A collective gasp rippled through the assembled Kulturans. Vera felt as though she'd been struck. "You're what?" "My husband," Nymeria repeated, a hint of her mother's steel in her voice. "And the man who saved my life when my ship was destroyed." The man who has spent the last 10 years helping me navigate human space while I recovered from my injuries and assembled the evidence that will change everything we thought we knew about the war. The human, Blackage, stepped forward to stand beside Nymeria. He did not bow or show any sign of submission, but neither was his posture threatening. "Your Majesty," he said in heavily accented but comprehensible Kulturian, "I understand this is unexpected, but your daughter and I have traveled a long way with information vital to both our species." Vera's mind raced. Her daughter alive. Her daughter married to a human. Her daughter returning after a decade with claims of evidence about the war that had nearly destroyed both their civilizations. "Commander Dra," she said finally, "escort the princess and her companion to the secure conference chamber in the east wing of the palace. Alert no one of their arrival." She turned to face her daughter fully. "We will speak privately before any announcements are made or any evidence is presented." Nymeria nodded, the gesture so familiar it made Vera's heart ache. "That would be wise. The information we carry is sensitive enough to destabilize the current peace if handled incorrectly." As the unusual party prepared to depart, Vera found herself studying the human who claimed to be her son-in-law. There was something in the way he carried himself, something in the protective stance he took beside Nymeria that spoke of more than political alliance. "Captain Blackage," she called out, causing him to pause and turn toward her. "You claim to have saved my daughter's life. I did what any soldier would do when finding an enemy combatant in distress, Your Majesty," he replied. "I chose mercy over vengeance." "And then you married her." Vera couldn't keep the incredulity from her voice. For the first time, the human's serious expression cracked into something resembling a smile. "That came later, Your Majesty. Much later, after we discovered we had a common enemy far more dangerous than either of us had realized." Before Vera could demand clarification, Nymeria intervened. "Mother, please. All will be explained. But not here in the open." With a short nod, Vera relented. She watched as her daughter, her living, breathing daughter, walked with the human toward the waiting transport, moving in perfect synchronicity as though they had done so countless times before. "Your Magnificence," Grex whispered at her side, having arrived with the security detail. "What shall I tell the council delegation?" Vera's gaze remained fixed on the retreating figures of her daughter and the human. "Tell them nothing yet, but prepare the war room and summon the high command. I have a feeling we're going to need them." As her royal shuttle lifted off, heading back to the palace, Queen Vera of the Coltrane Empire felt something she had not experienced in a decade: genuine fear. Not for herself, but for the fragile peace that had cost millions of lives to achieve. Whatever revelation her daughter and this human brought with them, she suspected it would shake the foundations of that peace. And perhaps, though she would admit this to no one, she also felt something else, a spark of admiration for the human who had dared to save and then marry a princess of the empire that had once been his sworn enemy. "Computer," she said to her shuttle's AI, "access archive files on human military officer Marcus Blackage." "Accessing," the computer responded. "Captain Marcus Blackage, Human Alliance Special Forces, presumed killed in action during the Battle of Orion's Belt. Decorated officer with 17 confirmed Kulturian kills, known for his unconventional tactics and interesting approach to regulations." Vera settled back in her seat, her mind working furiously. Her daughter, the perfect Coltrane princess, had married a human rebel with a reputation for breaking rules. It was almost laughable. Almost, but not quite, because something told her that before this day was done, she would learn truths that would make her daughter's choice of mate seem like the least of her concerns. The shuttle accelerated toward the royal palace, where secrets long buried awaited their moment in the light. The secure conference chamber in the east wing of the royal palace had been designed for crisis meetings during the war. Its walls contained signal jammers, quantum encryption matrices, and enough defensive capabilities to withstand orbital bombardment. Queen Vera had never imagined using it for a family reunion. She arrived before the others, dismissing all attendants except for her most trusted guard, Commander Zul, who stood silently by the door. Vera paced the length of the oval table, her claws clicking against the polished stone floor. "You seem nervous, Your Magnificence," Zul observed, breaking protocol by speaking without being addressed first. Vera shot him a withering glance. "Nervous? I'm about to interrogate my daughter who has been presumed dead for a decade and has somehow returned with a human mate. Nervous doesn't begin to cover it." "If I may, Your Magnificence," Zul ventured, "Princess Nymeria always had excellent judgment. If she chose this human as her mate, perhaps there is more to him than we perceive. Or perhaps she's been brainwashed by human psychology specialists," Vera countered. "Or she's an imposter with surgical modifications. Or 1,000 other possibilities that make far more sense than my daughter voluntarily binding herself to a species we were at war with." The conversation halted as the chamber doors slid open. Princess Nymeria entered first, her posture perfect despite the visible cybernetic enhancements along her left side. The human, Captain Blackage, followed close behind. Commander Dra and 2 royal guards brought up the rear. "Leave us," Vera commanded the guards. "Commander Dra, remain outside with Commander Zul. No one enters without my express permission." When the doors sealed shut, leaving just the 3 of them, the formal facade that had carried Vera through the spaceport encounter crumbled. She moved toward her daughter, arms outstretched. "Nymeria," she whispered, her voice breaking. "My child." For a moment, Nymeria stood rigid. But then she stepped forward into her mother's embrace. All 4 of Vera's arms wrapped around her daughter's frame, mindful of the cybernetic components. "I mourned you," Vera said softly. "We held funeral rites for 7 days. Your name was carved into the wall of fallen royals." Nymeria pulled back slightly. "I wanted to send word, Mother. But it wasn't safe. Not for me. Not for you. Not for anyone." "Safe from what?" Vera asked, her gaze shifting to the human who stood respectfully apart, allowing them their moment. Nymeria took a deep breath. "That's why we're here, to show you." She turned to her companion. "Marcus, the data crystals." The human nodded and reached into a secure pouch at his belt, retrieving 3 glowing hexagonal crystals. He approached the conference table and placed them carefully on the surface. "Your Majesty," he said, addressing Vera directly, "what you're about to see will contradict everything you believe about the war between our species. I ask only that you view the evidence completely before making any judgments." Vera's crest flattened slightly in suspicion. "If this is human propaganda—" "It's not," Nymeria interrupted. "Mother, please trust me one last time, as you did when you gave me command of the dreadful symmetry." The mention of the ship that had supposedly been her daughter's tomb silenced any further objections. Vera nodded curtly and moved to the head of the table. "Computer," she commanded, "interface with external data crystals and display contents on main projection." "Warning," the computer responded. "External data sources may contain harmful code. Proceed. Override security protocols. Authorization, Vera Prime 793. The air above the table shimmered as the holographic display activated. The first images showed the wreckage of a large battlecruiser, clearly the dreadful symmetry, drifting in space. Escape pods launching. Kultorian and human vessels exchanging fire. "This is from the battle where I was presumed killed," Nymeria explained. Footage compiled from both Kultorian and human data recorders. The scene shifted to the interior of a human vessel's medical bay. Nymeria lay unconscious on a treatment bed, horrifically injured. Blackage, younger and wearing a bloodied uniform, argued with another human in what appeared to be a heated debate. "They wanted to take you prisoner," Blackage explained, his voice tight with a memory. "Standard protocol for captured enemy officers, especially royalty." "But Marcus refused," Nymeria continued. "He invoked some obscure human medical ethics code that gave him authority as the ranking medical officer present." The footage changed again. A different location, a remote facility of some kind. Nymeria, now conscious but heavily bandaged, watched a screen showing footage of the continuing war. Her expression registered shock, then anger. 3 weeks after the Battle of Orion's Belt, Nymeria narrated, "I witnessed something that changed everything." "Show her, Marcus." The human manipulated the projection controls, fast-forwarding to a new sequence. The footage now showed a massive space station of unfamiliar design. Not Kultorian, not human. What am I looking at? Vera demanded. The headquarters of Galactic Amalgamated Resources, Blackage replied. GR for short. The largest multi-species corporation in the known universe. I'm familiar with GR, Vera said impatiently. They supplied both sides during the war, weapons, ships, medical supplies. Yes, Nymeria agreed. And doesn't that strike you as odd, that one entity was profiting from both sides of a devastating conflict? Before Vera could respond, the footage changed again. Now it showed a meeting room. Around a table sat representatives from various species. At the head of the table was a Visian with distinctive scarring across his silver face. Ambassador Thrick. Vera breathed in shock. Not just an ambassador, Nymeria corrected. Chief Operations Officer of GAR's military division. This recording was made 2 years before the war began. The audio activated, and Vera listened in growing horror as the beings around the table calmly discussed engineering a conflict between humans and Kultorians, the two rising powers whose competition threatened GAR's dominance in key sectors. We need a catalyst, the Visian was saying, something to ignite existing tensions. The destruction of a colony world would be ideal. Significant casualties, but not genocide, enough to infuriate. Not enough to cripple their military response. The Proxima colony is vulnerable, another voice suggested. Minimal defenses, strategic location. Too obvious, Thrick countered. New Eden is better. We frame the Kultorians. Let the humans strike back, and then we supply both sides for the duration while buying up contested territories once they're too depleted to hold them. Vera felt physically ill. The Proxima massacre had been the flashpoint that started the war, a human colony destroyed. All evidence pointing to Kultorian separatists. Her empire had denied involvement, but no one had believed them. Over 14 billion dead, she said quietly. Kultorian and human combined. For profit? Not just profit, Blackage added grimly. Control. While our civilizations tore each other apart, GR was acquiring resource rights, trade routes, even governance authority in disputed systems. They now effectively control 27% of what was previously Kultorian human contested space. Nymeria moved to stand beside her mother. There's more. The peace treaty, the one that barely holds our empires in check. GAR representatives drafted key provisions. Provisions that ensure continued dependence on their products and services for both our peoples. Vera stared at the frozen image of Thrick, the Visian who had stood in her throne room just hours before, pretending concern about her daughter's return. Why come forward now, she asked. Why wait 10 years? We needed irrefutable proof, Blackage explained, not just of the conspiracy to start the war, but of their ongoing operations. We've spent a decade infiltrating GAR facilities, gathering evidence, building a case that neither humans nor Kultorians could ignore. And we needed to create a network, Nymeria added. Humans and Kultorians who would believe us, who would help us expose the truth without triggering another war. People positioned to act when the moment came. Which is now, Vera concluded, her analytical mind already shifting to strategic implications. Because, Blackage said, his face grim, GR is preparing to ignite a second conflict. Another incident is planned for the Centauri corridor in 6 days. A Kultorian attack on a human relief convoy. Or so it will appear. Nymeria placed a hand on her mother's arm. We have the location, time, and operational details. With coordinated action from both our governments, we can catch them in the act. But we need to move quickly and carefully. Vera's mind raced. Such accusations against GR, against members of the Galactic Council itself, would not be received well. She would be risking everything on her daughter's word and the evidence before her. You said you married this human, she said suddenly, turning to Nymeria. Why was it necessary for your mission? Nymeria exchanged a look with Blackage that conveyed volumes. It began as convenience, she admitted. A human traveling with his Kultorian wife raised fewer questions than a lone Kultorian in human space. But it became much more. I saved her life, Blackage added. But she saved my soul. I had lost everything in the war, my family on New Eden, my faith in humanity. Working with Nymeria gave me purpose again. And I had lost my future, Nymeria said softly. The princess who would be queen was gone. My body broken, my identity secret. Marcus never treated me as a political asset or an alien curiosity. He saw me as a person, as an equal partner. Despite herself, Vera was touched by the genuine emotion between them. It reminded her of her own mate, Nymeria's father, long since passed. So, she said briskly, returning to the matter at hand. You return now with this explosive evidence, expecting me to act, to risk open conflict with GAR and potentially the Galactic Council itself. We're not just approaching you, Blackage clarified. While Nymeria came here, my former commanding officer is presenting the same evidence to Human Alliance leadership. We coordinated the timing precisely. And if I refuse to believe you? If I decide this is all an elaborate human plot? Nymeria's expression hardened in a way that reminded Vera startlingly of herself. Then billions more will die in a manufactured war, and the truth will eventually come out anyway. But by then, it might be too late for either of our civilizations to recover. Vera turned away, staring at the wall of battle maps from the previous war. Each red mark represented a Koltorian defeat. Each blue, a victory. So much death. So much destruction. And for what? For Gar's bottom line. Computer, she said suddenly. Contact Admiral Vex. Priority Alpha. Encryption level maximum. Connecting, the computer responded. The holographic display flickered to life, showing the weathered face of the Koltorian fleet admiral. Your Magnificence, he began, then stopped short when he spotted Nymeria. By the cosmic egg. Princess Nymeria, is it truly you? It is, Admiral, Nymeria confirmed. And we have little time. I need you to listen carefully. For the next 30 minutes, they outlined the situation. Admiral Vex's initial skepticism gave way to cold fury as the evidence mounted. The Centauri corridor operation, he said finally. We can have a stealth squadron in position within 40 hours. But if we're to coordinate with human forces, he trailed off, the old hatred and distrust evident in his tone. I'll handle the human liaison, Blackage volunteered. I still have contacts in Alliance Special Operations who will work with us regardless of official channels. Vera made her decision. Admiral Vex, implement Operation Shadowscale. Full communications blackout. Select personnel only. I want our most loyal officers leading this mission. And the council representatives currently in the palace? Vex asked. Keep them comfortable and completely in the dark, Vera ordered, especially Ambassador Thrick. I'll deal with him personally when the time comes. After the Admiral's image faded, Vera turned to her daughter and the human. If you're wrong about this, if the evidence is somehow fabricated, you realize what it will mean. We're not wrong, Nymeria said confidently. And as insurance, we've arranged for the data to be broadcast across all major networks in both human and Koltorian space, if anything happens to us. Vera couldn't help but smile at her daughter's thoroughness. You always were 3 steps ahead, even as a hatchling. Her gaze shifted to Blackage. Captain, I don't pretend to understand what exists between you and my daughter, but I recognize genuine dedication when I see it. You've kept her safe for 10 years in hostile territory. For that alone, I owe you a debt. Blackage inclined his head respectfully. I would have done the same if she were any other Koltorian, Your Majesty. The war was built on lies. I couldn't perpetuate them. How very unhuman of you, Vera remarked dryly. Or perhaps, Nymeria suggested, how very human indeed. The best of them, like the best of us, choose justice over prejudice. Well, Vera sighed. I suppose I should prepare to meet the rest of your human family. Do you have hatchlings yet? Blackage coughed awkwardly, while Nymeria's scales flushed a vivid shade of embarrassment. Mother, we've been rather busy exposing an interstellar conspiracy. Family planning wasn't exactly a priority. Besides, Blackage added, the xenobiologists are still working out the compatibility issues. Ah, yes, the technical challenges, Vera waved a dismissive hand. I'm sure they can be overcome with sufficient motivation. I expect grandchildren eventually, hybrid or otherwise. Can we perhaps focus on preventing another war before discussing reproduction? Nymeria asked, her crest flattening in exasperation. Of course. Vera activated the communication panel again. Grex, prepare the war room as ordered and have my personal chef prepare a proper meal for the princess and her mate. Something suitable for both Kultorian and human physiology. As they prepared to leave the conference chamber, Vera pulled her daughter aside for a private word. I must ask, Nymeria, when this is over, will you stay? Return to your position as heir? Your people have missed you. I have missed you. Nymeria's expression softened. I don't know, mother. I'm not the same princess who left on the dreadful cemetery. My experiences, my perspective, they've changed me. Obviously, Vera replied with a pointed glance toward Blackage, who was examining a Kultorian battle standard with genuine interest. What I mean is, Nymeria continued, I may be more valuable as a bridge between our species than as a traditional heir. The old ways, the isolation and superiority that defined the empire for generations, they led us into a trap. We need to evolve. Vera was silent for a long moment. You sound like your father, she said finally. He always believed our future lay in connection rather than conquest. I was too stubborn to listen then. Perhaps I'm still learning. 6 days later, Queen Vera stood on the bridge of the Kultorian flagship Indomitable Will, watching as the operation unfolded on the tactical display. The Centauri corridor glowed with the presence of ships from both human and Kultorian fleets, positioned in a carefully orchestrated trap. GR vessel approaching the designated coordinates, reported the tactical officer. They're disguised as a Kultorian attack cruiser, but our quantum scanners confirm it's actually the Phoenix Dawn, registered to a GAR subsidiary. And the human relief convoy? Vera asked. In position, Your Magnificence. Actually manned by Human Alliance Special Forces. Captain Blackage is aboard the lead vessel. Nymeria stood at her mother's side, her posture tense. They're right on schedule. Just as our intelligence indicated. Open a channel to Admiral Kostova of the human fleet, Vera ordered. The stern face of the human admiral appeared on screen. Despite years of fighting Kultorians, she maintained a professional demeanor. Queen Vera, all human vessels are in position. Weapons hot but safe. As are ours, Admiral. Let us hope our restraint is rewarded with justice today. The tactical display showed the GR vessel powering up weapons systems. Right on cue, the fake Kultorian transponder signal began broadcasting threats to the relief convoy. They're completely committed to the deception, Nymeria observed. They have no idea we're waiting. Spring the trap, Vera commanded. In perfect synchronization, human and Kultorian vessels decloaked, surrounding the GR ship. Tractor beams engaged, immobilizing it instantly. Vessel secured, the tactical officer reported. Boarding parties from both fleets are moving in. Ambassador Thrick is confirmed to be on board, along with 3 other GR executives. Vera exchanged a satisfied look with her daughter. And so it begins. The exposure, the trials, the restructuring of power. It won't be easy, Nymeria cautioned. GR has deep influence throughout the galaxy. Many will resist the truth, protect their interests. Then they will learn what happens when they underestimate the combined might of humans and Kultorians, Vera replied. A lesson GR is about to learn quite painfully. On the main screen, footage showed human and Kultorian soldiers moving through the captured vessel together, former enemies now united in purpose. In the command center, Ambassador Thrick and his co-conspirators were being led away in restraints, their expressions a mixture of shock and fury. Vera turned to face the bridge crew, who watched her expectantly. Beyond them, she knew billions of her subjects were viewing this historic moment via emergency broadcast. Today marks the end of one era and the beginning of another, she declared. For too long, outside forces have manipulated our peoples, turning natural competitors into bitter enemies. No more. From this day forward, the Kultorian Empire extends not conquest but partnership to the human alliance. She gestured toward Nymeria, standing proud despite her cybernetic implants. or perhaps because of them, living proof of what cooperation between their species could achieve. My daughter, once thought lost to us, returns not just as a princess of the blood but as a herald of a new approach. She and her human mate have shown us that we are stronger together than apart. That truth, not deception, is the foundation of true power. As officers from both fleets reported the successful capture of all GR operatives and the securing of additional evidence, Vera watched Nymeria quietly slip away toward the communications bay. Following at a discreet distance, she observed her daughter making contact with Blackage on the human vessel. Their conversation was brief but intimate, ending with a gesture that Vera recognized as uniquely theirs. Not quite Kultorian, not quite human, but something new. A blending of cultures that somehow worked despite all logic suggesting it shouldn't. Perhaps that was the future. Not the dominance of one species over another, but the creation of something greater than either could achieve alone. Messy, complicated, occasionally absurd, but stronger for its diversity. As Nymeria ended the transmission and turned to find her mother watching, Vera did not pretend she hadn't been observing. "You know," she said casually, "the royal palace has an east wing that has been empty since your disappearance. It could be renovated to accommodate mixed-species habitation. If you and your mate were interested in a more permanent residence on Kultoria Prime." Nymeria's crest lifted in surprise. "You would welcome a human to live in the royal palace? What would the High Council say?" "The High Council will say whatever I tell them to say," Vera replied with a dismissive wave. "Besides, they can hardly object to the presence of the man who helped prevent another war and expose the greatest conspiracy in our history." "I'll discuss it with Marcus," Nymeria said, trying and failing to hide her pleasure at the suggestion. "Though I warn you, he has some strange human customs. He insists on cooking his own food sometimes, and he exercises by lifting heavy objects repeatedly for no apparent reason." "How bizarre," Vera commented. "Though I suppose every species has its quirks. Did you know humans require regular exposure to ultraviolet radiation to maintain proper bone density? Absolutely primitive biological design." Then, as they walked back to the bridge together, Vera felt a weight lift from her heart, one she had carried for 10 long years. Her daughter was alive. The truth about the war that had nearly destroyed both their civilizations had been revealed. And perhaps, just perhaps, a new and better chapter was beginning for both their peoples. Though if Blackage thought he was escaping the traditional Kultorian test of worthiness for royal consorts, he was sorely mistaken. Some traditions, after all, were worth preserving. Vera smiled to herself, already planning the obstacle course. She would have to modify it slightly for human physiology. Of course, it was only fair, after all. And if there was one thing both humans and Kultorians could eventually agree on, it was the importance of fairness. "Mother," Nymeria said, breaking into her thoughts, "you have that look. What are you planning?" "Nothing you need worry about, dear," Vera replied innocently. "Just a small welcoming ceremony for your mate. Very traditional, very dignified." Nymeria's suspicious expression suggested she knew better, but she merely sighed in resignation. They just promised no combat trials to the death. Humans are surprisingly fragile. "Of course not," Vera assured her. "Merely combat trials to the point of mild unconsciousness, as is proper." As her daughter began to protest, Vera laughed, a sound not heard in the royal palace for many years. The future would be challenging, but for the first time in a decade, it would also be bright. And somewhere, she thought, the spirit of Nymeria's father was watching, nodding in approval at this unexpected but perfect outcome to the war he had always opposed. "For peace," she whispered in the ancient Kultorian tongue, a prayer and a promise combined. "For peace," Nymeria echoed, understanding completely.